Hi, welcome back to Real Auto Reports. I'm Jonathan McGrew, and today we have the real first impressions video on this 2013 Lexus GX 460. This is the premium edition, and it's the mid-range SUV in the Lexus lineup. So let's take a closer look. From the front, what you're going to notice about this GX 460 is that it is a big design. It's got big, broad fenders up here, and you've got these big headlights and this big grille with what I think is a really large Lexus badge. And the Lexus badge is actually hiding the around view here, the monitor, the camera, that lets you see this whole front bumper area with the exception of a little V here in the front. That's really helpful when you're parking, even with the park assist that is an option on this GX 460. This is the premium edition, so it is loaded up pretty well, and at almost $67,000 you would expect it to be. You also have in the front, which you can see, the HID headlights here. Great for at night, great for vision. It also has automatic high beams, which is a nice feature, especially if you're out here on Real Auto Ranch like we are, and there aren't a lot of lights at night. But yet you can drive into the city and you won't have the issue of having to turn the headlights on, the high beams up and down when you're going through dark streets that you could use a little bit extra light. So that's a nice feature. Let's go around to the side and take a look there. From the side, what you're going to notice is that this vehicle has a large presence, larger than the 2002 models in that previous generation, the first generation of the GX. Now, in the GX 460, what you have is this larger appearance, it carries more, and it looks more like its larger brother, the LX, which is really based on the Toyota Land Cruiser. Some details that we'd like to point out are the chrome accented door handles. You have very large mirrors, which help you for visibility, and you have the turn signal indicators here in the mirror, which help people know when you're trying to move over. Of course, it also has the integrated running boards, 18-inch wheels, and all in all, a great look. Oh, and you can't forget, if you need extra room, it's got the roof rails so you can carry things on the roof. Also a nice feature to have, and one you would expect at the price point that this vehicle is. Now, other than that, the vehicle is pretty much as you see it, so we're going to take a look at the back. From the rear, what you notice immediately is that the taillight design is different than the previous generation, but that may not be known to people anymore because we've had this design since 2009. So in 2013, it is getting a little long in the tooth. But all in all, I like the integration of the taillights. You have your integrated rear spoiler and your third brake light. And this vehicle still has an option that a lot of SUVs anymore don't. You can pop the rear hatch and put stuff in right like that. Now, that might be a moot point now because most vehicles have an automatic rear hatch. Something this vehicle does not have, which I thought on first impression was pretty surprising, because you open the door like this. This is pretty odd to people nowadays. In fact, it reminds me of the Isuzu Troopers, not a luxury high-end Lexus SUV. In fact, the Trooper used to be the Acura high-end SUV back in the 90s. So the other thing you'll notice is that it doesn't close itself, but it's counterweighted. But you'll notice it didn't shut all the way. These are some things you have to consider when you're looking at living with a vehicle like this for long term. However, you might not mind it too much. It just means you can't automatically open the hatch or the lift gate, or in this case, the swing gate, when you're at the store, and like around Christmas time, that could become a problem when you're full of packages. Something else I'd like to point out is it does have a hitch, but it is covered. It's got the rear park assist, and it does have a rear windshield wiper, but it is nicely tucked away under the rear spoiler. So that's all the stuff from the back. We're going to take a look at the inside. From the driver's seat, what you notice immediately on first impression is that these seats are a little flatter than you might expect. They're a little harder than I might have expected too for such an SUV with such a large impression. I would have expected them to be more like a Range Rover Sport. However, to me, they're more like a BMW. Some people are going to find that okay. You do have full power seats on both sides, and the driver has a 2-button memory seat. Now, for those of you who have watched my reviews for a while, you know that I like a 3-button, and I think it's good for the consumer because you get an extra setting for the ladies out there with multiple shoe heights, and for those of you that have 3-member families that drive one vehicle, it's nice to have all those settings captured, especially at about $67,000. But 2 will do, and we'll live with that, and they work nicely doing the mirrors, the seat, the steering wheel, which is an electric tilt and telescopic wheel, which again is nice. You also have all your steering wheel controls, including a way to turn on those front cameras that I mentioned in the beginning of the review. You can also set it to auto so that when you come to a full stop or under about 5 miles an hour, it turns those cameras on, which can be nifty for parking so you don't have to keep hitting the button. You've also got a number of switches that you'll see there in the console, and those control everything from downhill ascent to the height of the vehicle, because this does have a variable height, kind of like the Range Rover Sport we've tested, both of them. And it also has a suspension control setting so that you get a comfort, a middle, and a sport mode in the suspension. Lots of features in this vehicle, including the navigation and the upgraded Mark Levinson sound system. And something you can't see from this view are the rear switches to put the 3rd row. Yes, this vehicle is a 7-passenger, and you can put the 3rd row up and down, both from the right side back wheel well and from the very rear, all electrically, which keeps you from having to bend over the back and really, well, throw your back out in some occasions to try to get those seats folded and re-put into a position where a passenger could use them. So, some good features. Some other things about the interior I want to mention are the reclining and sliding middle rear seats, which help for taller passengers and for cargo reassignment. If you need to pull those seats forward to get more cargo in and lay that 3rd row down, you can do it. So under the hood, what you're going to find is this 4.6-liter V8 engine from Lexus. This is a 301 horsepower engine and does 15 city, 20 highway with a 17 mile per gallon combined, as rated by the EPA, which is not bad for the size of vehicle and the amount of horsepower coming out of this engine. It is a full-time all-wheel drive vehicle, so you don't have the full 4-wheel drive functionality that you might be used to in some of the other vehicles, but oddly enough, it does have a crawl in a 4-low setting. So maybe we're just telling a fib and they just like to call it full-time all-wheel drive. This is a neat vehicle because it's pretty capable, it's got good beefy tires, it's got a nice ground clearance, and as I mentioned before, you can lift it up. It's mated to a nice transmission that shifts well and gives you good power out on the road. It even has a manual matic mode, not with paddle shifters, but you can still shift it with the shifter. I think that they've done a nice job pairing power with the transmission, and I think that Lexus will probably end up updating this at some point, because in China, this is actually a GX 400, meaning it has a 4-liter motor. So we'll see what they come up with in the future, but if you're looking today, from a first impressions perspective, it actually stacks up pretty well with the competition.
All right, so from the driver's seat, the first impressions hitting the road, what we notice about this vehicle straight away is that it has a nice steering feel and a lot of get up and go. You know, as we pull out here onto the street, we can really get onto the accelerator and get going, and that's 35, almost 40 when you finally lift off the accelerator. And that's not bad for a good full-figured SUV such as this GX 460. Now, 301 horsepower, and the steering feels really nice. And on the real detailed review, we'll give you more about the steering. But it's just a nice driving vehicle. What we're interested to learn is that this has the comfort, the middle grade, and then the sport suspension settings. And we're interested to learn more about that in this first impressions. Driving it right now, it seems pretty good. I have it in the middle view, the middle option. It doesn't have a name, but it's between sport and comfort. And it feels pretty nice. Definitely is soaking up the little grooves in the pavement here. And it doesn't feel like, you know, it's over swaying, which for those of you who are fans of the GX 460, you will know that in 2010 there was a whole recall issue around its maneuverability tests. So they fixed that and they added some programming to the stability control, and here we are in 2013 with a nice driving vehicle, and I think they've done a nice job. However, this is just the first impression. It's pretty comfortable. It's easy to see out of with great visibility, great big mirrors, and the steering, as I said, from a first impressions is a lot nicer than I feel a lot of the steering is when I first get into cars. It has a good weight. It feels variable enough, but yet still controlled, and that's very important in a vehicle as large as this GX 460 really is. So we'll have more details in the wrap-up coming up next.
So that's the real first impressions video of the 2013 Lexus GX 460. As I said in the review, this is a mid-range vehicle for them. Well, mid-range in size, not in price. It is about $67,000 as tested, but it has a lot of really interesting features like the headlight washers, the front park assist, rear park assist, the around view monitor. Well, actually it's just the front and the side so you can see where you're parking, and it's got the one out back. It has a 4.6 liter V8 and 301 horsepower. It drinks a little bit more fuel than some might like, but at 15 city, 20 highway, it's actually not bad for the size and the level of luxury you get in this vehicle. We'll have more details for you in the real video, the real review, coming up real shortly here at Real Auto Reports. I'm Jonathan McGrew. We'll see you down the road.